Okay, it's time to try the 0 to 60 again, and thanks to lots of comments across YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I'm pretty sure that this car can do launch control. To engage it, I basically push the traction control button and hold it for a while until the traction control is fully off. I then place my left foot on the brake as hard as I can, dump my foot on the clutch and go. Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to my Audi B9 S4. I've owned this car for about 2 months now, and you may well have seen my driving impressions video that I put out a couple of weeks ago. But what I want to do in this video is kind of just talk through some of the things I love about this car, but there are a few things that I really struggle with the new shape Audi S4, and also one of the joys about buying a car that you didn't spec yourself is that there are bound to be things that aren't on the car that you really would quite like. So I think we probably need to have a bit of a conversation, and I reckon we should get in the car first. And actually getting in the car is one of the first things I have a problem with. Now I know this is a first world problem, but my old S4 had the system where as long as you have the key with you, the car knew you were there and you could just basically grab the handle and open the car. This one doesn't have it, and I really didn't think it would be a problem, but it is a real pain because you have to actually get the key out and unlock the car with a key. I mean, how old school's that? Annoying thing number one. I know that's just a small thing, but let's kind of get the negative stuff out the way first, shall we? So here we are inside my S4, and on the whole, I think the interior of this car is absolutely stunning. You probably know me well by now. I am a big fan of virtual cockpit. So if we just start the car, and it does sound really good. I love that display. I love the fact that I've got the two different view options. I can have the big map with the smaller dials, or I can, in the S and RS models, you can have the big central rev counter, and I think that's fantastic. But then a few years ago in an Audi R&D or design meeting, they obviously said, look, in the old A4 S4 this screen was integrated into the dashboard, and they said, I know, we need a bigger screen or a better resolution screen. Why don't we do this? We'll get an iPad and we'll stick the iPad to the dashboard. That'll look good, won't it? No, it won't. Of all the things that I struggle with in this car, that is it. I just don't think it fits well with the design at all. And I know in some Audi models you've got the option to basically for that to go in and out of the dashboard, but sadly not in the A4 S4. It's just there. Now don't get me wrong, you kind of get used to it, but I just don't think that's an elegant design solution. I think it would look far, far better if it was integrated into the dash or had the ability to come up and down. So yeah, from an aesthetics design point of view, sorry Audi, I really don't get that. Now, in order to control that, I've basically got my controllers here. Now, one of the really cool things in the new A4 S4 is the control pad. In the old car, that used to be a wheel that you'd push up and down, and you'd have some menus on there. I've actually got a touch-sensitive little screen, pad here that I can make letter shapes with and control things like input stuff into the sat nav. I quite like that. However, if you're sat here, the main menu button is actually obscured by that rotational dial. I can't actually see the menu button from here. It's kind of just over there. Plus the gear lever, it just kind of doesn't, I don't know, I would have probably put that here and the gear lever here. Kind of just swap them round, and I think that would look, you know, would have been much better. So ergonomically, they're my two big gripes about the inside of this car. Now, one of the options that this car has that my old S4 didn't is Audi's Drive Select system. Now, I can control that with a button here, or actually you can do it from the steering wheel as well. If I throw it up onto that central screen, you've got Efficient, Comfort, Auto, and then if I stick it into Dynamic, and I don't know, you might just be able to hear that because an exhaust valve opens, because one of the options is I can put the engine sound to dynamic. Now, eagle-eyed amongst you in my drive video will have noticed that basically I had it in individual mode, and I said I just set everything to dynamic. So someone was like, why don't you just stick it in dynamic then? Well, there's a simple answer to that. I haven't actually told Mrs. Petrol how to control that yet. So I've just said, look, I've put an individual mode, I've kind of set the car up just how we need it. Whereas actually I've just stuck it in dynamic, everything, so it goes really nicely and it sounds great. But clearly you could play with that and have it in comfort settings and so on. Now, this car doesn't have the adaptive suspension, sadly, which I would like as an option. The RS4 that I drove had it. Honestly, I think for 80 or 90% of the driving that we do, really, you probably don't need it. But clearly, if you wanted to have that kind of ability to change how the suspension settings were and firm it up or soften it off, then that's a setting you would probably want. But yeah, I quite like the drive select system. It's just a shame it's on that. Yeah, do I think that looks better? Maybe. What else? Driving position is pretty much the same as the old S4. Seat-wise, I had the upgraded sport seats in my old car, which I think looked fantastic, but I must say the seats in this are very, very lovely. Heated seats. We don't have the memory seat option. Someone had asked me whether or not you could have memory seats. You can, but this car doesn't have the memory seat option. To be honest, even though we had it in the old car, never really used it that much. We just get in it and manually adjust it, which I know is really daft. There is a kind of lumbar support and massage function in these seats, as well as them being heated, but I just think they look fantastic. But overall, the kind of driving position of the car, pretty much the same. Now, should we talk about some of the nice things in here? Come on, come around the other side. Now, one of the great things about this being my car is I can pretty much tell you exactly what I think about it without any fear of retribution from the dealer or the manufacturer. Although, to be fair, in my views, I do really try hard to give you a very balanced view. But I am a big Audi fan, as I'm sure you know, and I just think the lines internally in this car, that sweeping dash, is very simple. Apart from that, the use of how you control the technology is, even when you're at speed on a motorway, you can control stuff really nicely through the steering wheel or through the dash console. It's easy, and the menu navigation screens are easy. One question I did get, by the way, is although in my driving video I had both of these screens set to the navigation function, you can set them independently, so you could have something else like your media or your radio, your telephone on the central screen, and then just have the maps on your main display. The other comment that a few people said is it not distracting having the kind of map moving around there? And honest answer to that is I don't find it is. Maybe some drivers would. I actually find it's really useful. You don't have to look down too much when you're coming up to junctions and so on to get your navigation instructions. So all in all, I really like the new layout for the A4 S4 in here. I think it's a really well ergonomically designed thing. The last feature that this car doesn't have that my previous car did have, which is probably worth mentioning, is this car doesn't have the upgraded Bang & Olufsen stereo system, and my old car did. And I actually only recognised or realised that when I got the car and I noticed there weren't any Bang & Olufsen badges on the speakers. I just hadn't looked. And initially I was a bit disappointed. I was like, oh, you muppet, what have you done? But honestly, for the way I listen to music in here, I've still got a jukebox I can load music up to. I've got Apple CarPlay that I can plug my iPhone and take music straight from my iPhone. So there's plenty of ways for me to access music. And at the volume levels, this stereo still sounds great. If you're a real kind of music lover and a hi-fi lover, for sure you're going to want the Bang & Olufsen system. But, you know, is it worth the extra money? Yeah, probably, but it's not something that you would, you know, on an everyday basis miss that much, I don't think. Now, one of the things this car does have that I wasn't sure whether it had it when we did the driving impressions, was whether it had launch control. And many of you said, look, it has it. This is how you get it engaged. You should be able to beat your 0 to 60 time. So I reckon we try, don't you? I reckon we see whether we can beat my 0 to 60 time. So let's have a go at launch control. Okay, it's time to try the 0 to 60 again, and thanks to lots of comments across YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I'm pretty sure that this car can do launch control. To engage it, I basically push the traction control button and hold it for a while until the traction control is fully off. I then place my left foot on the brake as hard as I can, dump my foot on the clutch and go. 60. Now that sounded much better. Yeah, it didn't quite have the like the RS4. I'm sure I probably completely knackered up my transmission, but happy days. That sounded and felt much better. Well, not a bad effort, not a bad effort. Now, to finish off this video, I'm going to go outside and kind of give you my final impressions of the outside of the car before I draw this video to a close. Now, one last feature to talk about that this car doesn't have, but I really wish it did, is this car doesn't have the Matrix LED headlamps. Now, the RS4 I drove last year did, and at one point I was actually lucky enough to be driving the car in the very early morning light. It was still reasonably dark and it was foggy, and you could actually see the headlamps working, and they were just phenomenal things. Absolutely brilliant bit of technology. So if I were speccing an Audi from scratch myself, and I was wondering whether or not to tick that option of Matrix LED headlamps, I'd tick it every time. I know it's a reasonably expensive option. Now, because this car doesn't have them, it doesn't mean to say that it's deficient in any way when you're driving at night time. The full beam headlamps on this car are fantastic, but those Matrix lights are quite something else. It's got auto dimming full beam, so you can just stick the full beam on and it just dims it for you, but the Matrix are something else, and I really do wish it had those. As far as the rest of the car goes from the outside, I think it's a really good looking car. You could probably, now I'm not going to do this, but if you were in that kind of modification mode, you might want to drop some coilovers on this or just lower the ride height a little bit. I think the wheel arch gap at the front is just a little bit bigger than I would like, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to affect things like warranty and ride comfort and those types of things. And fundamentally, this is our everyday workhorse of a car, not my kind of, you know, super car project to make it look perfect. But it could maybe do with dropping a half an inch, maybe an inch, just to, I think it would look just that little bit better. But yeah, apart from that, outside I think the car looks great. The styling works really well for me, and I think in this colour it's beautiful. The only thing I am going to do very shortly, actually I was talking about it just yesterday, is I'm going to probably get it ceramic coated within the next few weeks. Just to give the paintwork that little bit of protection and give it some love. So that should be coming to the channel fairly soon. But I'm going to wander over there and give you my final impressions of this car. So there you go then. My overall impressions of my new Audi S4 B9. Hey look, even though I've said there are things that I'm not too keen about in that car, they pale into insignificance with all the things I love about it. The second you get in that car and you push the start button and that V6 springs into life with a bark, and you drive up the road and you drop it into sport mode and you put your right foot into the carpet and it just surges up the road. It's a very special car to drive, and as soon as you're in kind of dynamic mode and you're whizzing down a B road somewhere, you forget everything else, all the little gripes and the things that you're not so keen on. And I guess first things first, that is the flip side of getting a used car that you didn't spec yourself. There will always be compromises, and the compromises I had in that car I was prepared to live with for the things that we wanted. The black pack, the colour, the panoramic sunroof, all of those things. When you want to try and get all of that as a combination, it's quite tricky to do that. If you were speccing a car yourself, clearly you would have it exactly as you want it. But I will forgive all of those things. I might even forgive Audi for sticking that iPad on the dashboard. But I hope you've enjoyed that video. I wanted to just give you an honest warts and all opinion of a new car. And I'd be really interested to know if there are any other things you'd like me to do with the car. I'm clearly going to make other content with it. It's going to be on the channel hopefully for quite some time. Remember, it is not the replacement to my Mini. I still have my Mini, and actually I'll be bringing you an update on the progress of that. It's not gone well in my next film, but so you'll have to stay tuned for that to find out where I am in the hunt for my new car. But I'm going to bring that video to a close. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And with my brand new Audi S4 behind me, I'll see you on the next film, guys. You take care. Drive safe.